What's going on, everybody? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone, and this is your weekly gear news update. I'm coming at you from the middle of a bunch of corn. We're in the middle of the Midwest. We're like in the middle as middle can get. So there's corn and trucks everywhere. So that's what you can hear back there. I think it's a FedEx depot, and trucks just beep all day. So you're just gonna have to deal with it. But we have a lot of news today. Let's get right into it. First story of the day is Ibanez is debuting their AR520H and their AR520H FM. These are looks like kind of a semi-hollow artist. Remember the Ibanez artist from the 70s, like the double cut, that other guitar sort of style? Really, really nice guitar. Binding, F-hole, violin looking top on one of them, black and gold on the other. And they have, I think, what they're calling their tri-tone setup, where there's a volume and a tone and a three-way switch, but then there's also switches to coil split the humbuckers as well as run them in parallel, which is very cool. Both features are a little different, but very cool. These are really cool guitars, I think. I used to have one of the 70s ones, and those were fantastic. These are probably better. Suhr is coming out with the limited edition standard legacy model that is basically designed around his very first design, John Suhr's first design, which is basically like a really fancy super Strat. Pretty colors, nice tops, Floyd Rose or Goto equipped with EMGs. Really cool guitar if you're into the super Strat thing. And what's really interesting is these are kind of like a throwback to the 80s, which is interesting that, you know, that was a long time ago now. They're kind of vintage guitars. So it's like a throwback to an 80s guitar, but it's vintage? How old is vintage? That's a good question. Maybe you should put that in the comments. How old is a vintage guitar? And of course, we can't go through a news cycle without any Harley Benton news. So we have some Harley Benton news this week. Not a guitar, actually, a wireless system. It's just one of those cheap plug it into your guitar wireless systems. I think they're like 68 bucks. And they've got one that is like a pedal on your board, which is the receiver, and then the transmitter is the thing that plugs into your guitar. But this one is actually the kind of one we think about, like when you buy it from Amazon or whatever. It plugs into the amp, right into the amp. Now, the one thing it does say about this Harley Benton wireless system is that you can't use it with active pickups. So if you have active pickups, there's some sort of interference issue that happens. So don't buy this if you have active pickups. For all you passive users out there that want to dabble in the wireless situation, this might be a thing for you. Gibson came out with a black, basically. They call it ebony colored, just like on their other guitars. It's just a black J45 and an SJ200, so you can check that out if you want a black version of a guitar that you might already have. Or maybe you don't have one of these yet, and now they make a black one, now you definitely want one. Lawler pickups, their well-known blackface series of pickups, they're actually changing the name from blackface to 64 Strat. Obviously, most of us who are familiar with guitar stuff know the blackface name that refers to the old Fender amps before the pre-CBS Fender amps. According to Lawler, their newer, younger audience may not be familiar with this common colloquialism that refers to this old amp. And so, out of sensitivity for those folks, they are actually going to change the name to 64 Strat. Well, apparently Mo Gibson, Mo problems. There are some quality issues with the Murphy Lab instruments that we're going to get into here in just a second. If you're not familiar with the Murphy Lab instruments, they are the ones in the tour that we did in the video. We'll put the little link to it up here. That are basically their vintage custom shop instruments, like aged instruments. Okay, so these have aged finishes on them. Usually they're a nitro finish that has been like frozen and cracked, or however they do it. They say it's proprietary, but it's probably frozen and cracked. Anyway, so they're having some issues with these instruments. The paint is literally falling off. It's on one color. It's on the dark cherry color, and it's on mostly the back of the instrument. It's not very many instruments. Casino Guitars did a report on this. The Casino Guitars guys made a video about it, and they said that if there was issues with these guitars, that they would just replace them, no problem, no questions asked. Apparently, according to the Casino report, there was a finish problem with the guitar, with some sort of sealer or something. They figured it out, they're changing them out, and everything is fine. Quality control is being addressed, it's not a big deal. The weird part of this is that Gibson made a public response statement to this, and the head of their product development said the oversaturation made them a little more brittle, which made them more susceptible to severe checking when not properly acclimated. We have an acclimation notice on the outside of our boxes. It is especially important that our dealers and fans fully acclimate their instrument in its case when changing climates and temperatures. I would say at least 5 hours minimum, just like you would with vintage 1950s instruments. What I don't like about this is it seems to blame the dealers and the players, the owners of the instruments. So other reports on the internet, including the Casino Guitars guys, has said that this was a problem with a sealer situation. They knew the problem and they were replacing the guitars. Sounds awesome. So why in their public statement do they seem to blame the customers or blame the dealers? That's a little weird. So it'd be interesting to get a little more clarification on that. I'm not really sure. I don't really like how that public statement was handled. Let me know in the comments if you bought one of these guitars. If you talk about Gibson in the comments, be nice. Don't be a mean person. We don't like mean people, but just, it's interesting. It's interesting. If you personally had problems with this, let us know in the comments below. Well, there you go. Thanks for hanging out. We got all kinds of cool new video stuff coming up. We just released a new video for our Patreon members. It comes out next week to the rest of the world. We toured the shop over there in Nashville, Tennessee at Runway Audio and shot a video about it. We've got some stuff about tuners coming out, guitar tuners. So that's pretty cool. We got a bunch of stuff coming out. And of course, our live show on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you hang out and check that out with us as well. My name is Dylan, and this has been your weekly Gear News Update.